and welcome back to my channel. After a long break, I have decided to start again as I feel that I've had a good bit of time off from YouTube, and yeah, here I am coming back, fresh as a daisy, ready to talk some more about music with you. In today's video, I will be giving a current top 5 list of my favourite books at the moment to read, particularly to do with singing, which makes sense but it may be interesting if you're a musician and play another instrument, because they're quite renowned topics that open up an interesting musicological space for discussion. Let's get right into it. Number 1 is Allanbrook's Rhythmic gesture in Mozart, Le Nozze di Figaro and Don Giovanni. This is kind of a musicological work, quite heavily analytical, but even if you're not a musicologist, this can be quite useful if you're playing a part in one of these operas, or even if you're in the orchestra pit playing violin or viola or what have you. Or if you're conducting, it's always good to know analytical stuff when you're conducting, which I'm sure any conductor watching doesn't need me to tell them. But as a singer, when I was learning the part of Zerlina in Don Giovanni, I read through a couple of pages of this, and it gave me some good insight into how the music links to the meaning. For example, the reuse of certain rhythms from Zerlina and Don Giovanni's duet later on in the opera, where Zerlina sings, for example, to portray her sort of slightly cheeky character. So yeah, that's an interesting one. Number 2, Ian Bostridge's Schubert's Winter Journey. This is also kind of an interpretive work. I wouldn't say it's as analytical in terms of looking at the music. It's kind of more historical. So anybody who knows a bit about Ian Bostridge, he read modern history in Oxford and then became a singer. So he kind of studied witchcraft and things, which is quite cool. And in this book, he kind of talks quite historically about the pieces that he's sung himself in performances, which is really interesting. For example, the chapter on Der Lindenbaum talks a lot about the historical significance of the linden tree in German culture, which is very interesting. I have found it very useful for when I've been studying the songs in Schubert's Winterreise. So yeah, Schubert's Winter Journey, Anatomy of an Obsession. Check it out. Next up, Catherine Clément's Opera or the Undoing of Women. Anybody doing a music degree probably knows about this work. It was sort of quite revolutionary when it came out. It's basically one of the first feminist scholarly books on opera and the position of female heroines in operatic plots. Now there are sort of arguments against it, and people have thought a lot about it, and there are a lot of interesting things against it, saying actually, for example, the woman in the opera is the reason we go to see opera, because her voice is very moving and she's got some of the most virtuosic parts. But all in all, it's a very interesting read. I would suggest reading through it. It's something you don't have to read the whole of as well, because it's quite political. You can take a chapter, read about that opera, and then sort of leave it for a bit. Up next is Janet Baker's Full Circle. I am currently halfway through this, and I would strongly recommend it to any aspiring singers especially. But if you want to learn about a famous singer's final year in her career, who's to stop you? Go read it too, if you're an instrumentalist. It's a very interesting piece of writing. As I said, she basically documents her last year in her operatic career. She did carry on after this for like 7 years doing concerts and things, I think, but it's quite interesting, and you really get some insight into the environment, because she literally logs most days that she has rehearsals and what have you. And it's kind of funny because sometimes there'll be one day she doesn't, and she'll literally say, woke up, did this, had a nice rest, and that's it. So yeah, check that out. Very interesting, very entertaining as well, and good insight. Last but definitely not least, I would say I kind of like this one the most, or at least it's had a bigger impact on me out of the 5. Maybe I'm wrong, I don't know. Renée Fleming's Inner Voice, Notes from a Life on Stage. Again, quite an autobiographical book with lots of insight into the operatic world and some concert bits, but I think when this was written she was quite active in operas mainly, I think. And it's kind of nice because I feel I've read some books, or I've avoided buying some books because the reviews said, oh, this person didn't really give advice, it was kind of just talking about what happened and all their achievements. But Renée Fleming kind of talks about all the amazing stuff she's done and makes it relevant, especially to young people looking to go into that career. So I would strongly recommend this. I enjoyed it, and I'm not gonna lie, I'll probably read it again because it was just so helpful, and it was nice visualising what the career is like and all the little things. So that's my top 5 books for aspiring opera singers, classical singers, or even if you're interested in opera and you play another instrument, go read them. I would highly recommend them. I decided to do this video because, for those of you who may know, I did actually do my top 5 books a few months ago when I was still a bit of a potato at making YouTube videos, and I kind of wanted to do a better one where I'm just more at home in front of a camera. Now, of course, I wouldn't actually think of this as a top 5, even though I may call it top 5 list. It's sort of more of a taster of what kind of things are good to read when you're going into this career, and sort of giving you the idea of what kind of range. So there were some books that were autobiographical, and then there were some that were interpretive, and then there was another one that was super interpretive, kind of more political, because some people say that art is outside of politics, but it really isn't. Like, there's always something political about it. You can always, and if there's not, there's always something you can read into it. So it's kind of interesting reading those kind of books, like Clément's one. But yeah, don't use this as, oh, a guide, I must go and read those exact 5 books now. It's sort of more of a, these are what I've written, maybe you can look for similar things if you're not so keen on, I don't know, analysis or something. But yeah, research is good in any profession. It's always good to get your head around what your career involves, whether it's researching a work, researching a singer's life, because there's always stuff to gain from that. I hope you enjoyed this video. Do click subscribe and like, and feel free to comment if you liked this video, or if you have any suggestions for what you'd like to see. And until next time, Goodbye. Ian Bostridge's Schubert's Winter's... Bleh.